Good evening and welcome to Ready Learning to Talk. My name is Mr. Samuel, and I'll be taking you commerce as regards to your forthcoming JAMB exams. First thing first, without wasting much time, we're going to know what commerce is all about. Let's look at the definition of commerce. As you can see, commerce can simply be defined as all activities involved in the distribution and exchange of goods and services to facilitate trade, right? What does this talk about? The activities involved, what are these activities, right? Let's say, okay, for example, we have banking, insurance, transportation, communication, production, and so on and so forth. As we all know that for commerce to be effective, all of this must come in place in order to be able to transport goods and services from one place to another and how it gets to the final consumer. So like you can see, we have banking, insurance, transportation, communication, production. We can also define commerce as the process of buying, selling, and distribution of goods and services. So we now move to the next part, which is factors of production. Having mentioned the factors of having mentioned the activities that deals with commerce, we mentioned production. So we'll now go ahead to look at what is production. Now, going by what is on our board, we can see that this refers to agents, components, or resources which are put together to produce goods and services, which includes the following. We have number one, which is land. Look at the definition of all these factors of production. We have it that land is defined as a free gift of nature that includes natural resources like forests, mineral resources. Okay, talking about mineral resources, we have things like crude oil, petroleum, gas, and so on and so forth. They are examples of the mineral resources we can talk about. We have rivers. As we all know, rivers is also part of land. And we have activities like fishing and so many other activities like manufacture of, extraction of ore. And also we have the atmosphere as part of land. So we now go ahead to talk about the next factors of production, which is labor. Having described commerce as all activities that is involved in the production of goods and services, of course, we know that labor has to come in for these goods to get to the final consumer. So we go ahead now and discuss labor as a factor of production. We have it that labor, right? Labor as a factor of production is defined as all forms of human effort utilized in production. And there are basically two types of labor, which is skilled labor and your skilled labor. I believe some of us must have heard about skilled labor, such aspect of labor. And we have the unskilled, which does not necessarily need the educational background. And we have it there that describing the unskilled labor, we have it that the unskilled labor is a category of labor that requires little or no formal education, but rather the use of physical energy or effort in production, also called a brown collar job. What does this mean? This kind of labor does not need you to have educational qualification or whatever, but is basically based on experience or training. For example, we have guards. We all know that even if you don't go to school, you can still be a guard. We have messengers, we have cleaners, we have gardeners, and so on and so forth. And now Talking about the skilled labor, we have it that the skilled labor requires the use of mental efforts in productive activities and involves specialized types of training in institution. This is where the educational part comes in. In institution of higher learning, such as accountants, like as we all know, there are people that go to university to study accountancy. We have engineers, we have doctors, we have lawyers, and so on and so forth. And some of these skilled labor is also called white collar jobs, as you can see here. So we now move to the next factor of production, which is capital. Most people usually think that when you mention capital, it's only the monetary aspect, but it's actually not only the monetary aspect. Going by definition, then, as you can see, we have it that capital is defined as man-made assets. Take note of the word assets here. Capital is defined as man-made assets used in production of goods and services. When we mention asset, we should know that yes, it does not involve only money. Of course, other factors can also come in. And we have it here that it includes cash, cutlass, hoe, machines, buildings, vehicles, raw materials. You can not only this, we have other materials that you can need apart from raw materials. It could be machinery, it could be let's say your computers, your laptops, and whatever. They are all under capital. And we all know that the reward for capital is interest, right? We put in our capital into a business because we are expecting an interest. That is why we can have it here that the reward of capital is interest. So now we move ahead to look at the next factor of production, the next factor of production. Okay. By the way, let's go ahead and see the definition of production itself. So we have it that production can be defined as the transformation of raw materials into goods and their distribution to the final consumers to satisfy their wants. Right? As we all know, the main reason why we produce goods and services is because we want to satisfy the wants of the final consumer. So we have it that production is also divided into two major categories, which are direct production and the indirect production. So now let's see what are the difference between this direct and indirect production. Right? Talking about direct production, we have it that this is a type of production in which individuals produce goods or services only for family consumption or use, and it's usually very small in size. For example, we have a peasant farmer. We all know what a peasant farmer is. A peasant farmer is somebody that actually farms in small quantity, probably just to feed the family and people around him. So this is an example of a direct production. Or for example, let's say a medical doctor, or let's say a pharmacy production. So we go ahead now to look at indirect production. What is indirect production? Or services are produced in large scale, right? Which is opposite of direct production. For example, we have when goods are produced in large scale, like, okay, taking Dangote for an example. Taking Dangote for an example, we all know that Dangote, of course, which is the richest black man in Africa, sugar, Dangote salt, and so on and so forth. So talking about this, you can see here that it's a type of production in which goods or services are produced in large scale. And it is actually divided into two, which is first one, the primary, and secondary production, and lastly, tertiary production. So we'll now go ahead and look at the different example of indirect production, right? Types of indirect production. Primary production, that is the first one. What does this mean? Primary production refers to the production that involves the extraction of raw materials provided by nature from land or water, such as agriculture, mining, fishing, etc. Right? Talking about this primary production. Okay, let's say for example, being processed to have what is known as cotton. We also have what is given here like mining, the extraction of minerals, which is from the land, and we have fishing, right? Example of primary production. Of course, we know that fishing involves when fishes are being gotten, you can see it processed into different forms like dry fish and so on and so forth. That is it, by the way. Now, we look at the second aspect of indirect production, which is the secondary production, right? And we can see that secondary production involves the conversion of these very raw materials that we derive from primary production involves the conversion of raw materials, finished goods, right? That is, some of these raw materials were gotten from the primary production into semi-finished goods that is acceptable by consumers. For example, we have processed foods like, okay, let's take geisha for example. We all know geisha product. For example, after harvesting fish from the river and it's being processed, it can be processed into can with the help of preservatives. It can be stored for consumers, right? Then we have also houses. Of course, when you build houses, there are other factors that still need to come in before it can be complete, like the wiring, the painting, and whatever, and so on and so forth. We have roads, we have clothes, we have cars, and others. Now, I'm talking about the third aspect of indirect production, which is tertiary production. What is tertiary production? We can see it here that it's concerned with what? Production of commercial and professional services to the people through distribution for consumption, such as the wholesalers, the retailers, and the transporters. This tertiary production is actually talking about how, after these goods are being produced or processed, how it is being, the processes it follows before it gets to the final consumer. That is what we're talking about here. That is the aspect of tertiary production. That is why you can see it here as concerned with the production of commercial and professional services to the people through distribution of consumption, such as the wholesalers, the retailers, and transporters. We are going to talk about wholesalers and retailers in detail. So let's look at the entrepreneur, of course, which is the last factors of production. So who is an entrepreneur in the first place? An entrepreneur is someone who puts in all that is required to see that some of these goods and services produced gets to the final consumer to make profit, simply to make profit, as we all know. So we can see it here that the entrepreneur is the fifth factor of production and the last, of course, and can be defined as the factor of production that coordinates and organizes other factors of production, which includes the land, capital, and labor. Other factors of production, the land, capital, and labor, into right? Other factor of production in order to produce goods and services to make profit. And just like we said from the beginning, the reward for entrepreneur, we all know, is profit. So now we move ahead to look at the division of labor. Division of labor. What is division of labor? Given by what we have here, division of labor is defined as the breakdown of production process into a number of separate operations, where each operation is undertaken or performed by one person or group of persons. You can see the example on the board. For example, in the publishing industry, which involves writing manuscripts, you all know the publishing industry involves writing of manuscripts, typing of that manuscript after writing the manuscript, editing of manuscripts, filming, printing, and so on and so forth. To make this work easier, division of labor can come in when these various parts of work is being divided into different sections or is being given to different individuals. Talking about the aspect of writing of the manuscripts, typing of the manuscripts, editing, filming, printing, and the likes. So we have it here that division of labor often leads to specialization. What does this specialization mean? This means when you give an individual a particular task and is able to handle such task, after some time, such individual will become specialized in handling that particular task. Taking, for example, you give an individual editing of manuscripts, right? As we all know, if this individual is able to handle this very aspect of editing of manuscript after a long time, such individual will become specialized faster or become more efficient in production of such manuscript. So now we move ahead to, we are given that specialization is the concentration of productive effort of an individual, firm, or country in a given aspect of economic activity. What is this trying to talk about? It can, like I said from the initial, it can be an individual or a group. Now, in this case, we are talking about a country. Like we all know, Nigeria might be good at providing or producing cocoa, right? Now, Nigeria can produce such product like cocoa and maybe export it to other countries, neighboring countries or overseas, who can process this cocoa into finished product. It's also an example of the specialization we are talking about. Yes, so we'll now go ahead to look at the next home trade. We all know that commerce is derived from the word commercial, right, which is general. So, of course, it has to do with trade, both domestically and internationally. So, as you can see here, home trade will play a very important aspect in commercial activities. So let's look at what home trade main area. That's what it means. Now you can see here that it is also called domestic or internal trade. Internal simply means within, as you can see here. And home trade is a branch of commerce that involves wholesaling and retailing. Taking for example of home trade, like, okay, let's say you plant crops within Kaduna, you harvest such crops within Kaduna and sell such crops within Kaduna, right? You produce such palm oil, market such palm oil, and sell such products within the country, and it is being utilized in that very country. That is an example of home trade. Now we're going to look at the next aspect of trade. Okay, or before then, we have so much talked about wholesaling, of course, which you know is a major contribution to commercial activities in every way. So now we'll go ahead and look at what is this wholesaling and retailing we are talking about. So starting with retail trade here, we can see that retail trade is the business activity of selling goods and services to the final consumer. Then the definition there of a retailer. So having talked about retail trade, now we'll talk about who is a retailer. So we can see it there by definition. A retailer may be defined as a trader who buys goods in small quantities from the wholesaler and sells in bits or units to the consumer or final consumer, whatever way. Right? Taking for example, let's say the Coca-Cola company now, they produce goods, they produce such goods like Coca-Cola products, and the wholesaler buys such product from them and sell it in bits or in units to the retailer. The work of the retailer now is to buy such goods in bits or the middleman essential in the chain distribution of goods. Right? We all know what a middleman is. Somebody that stands in between two parties. So we now go ahead and look at who is a wholesaler. Or before then, we talk about modern trades of retailing. As we all know, it is meant that growth is a constant thing. Back in the days, retailing has to do with probably owning a shop where people come and buy goods and services are used. Now, talking about this modern trade, we are talking about the modern way of retailing at these days. Now, we have it here that in order to facilitate business activity, new ideas and techniques have been introduced, such as branding. We have self-services, we have after sales services, and vending machine. These are the new ways of retailing that are trending now. So now let's go ahead and see these different trends of retailing that I'm talking about. The first one is branding. Let's talk about branding. Let's talk about branding. As you can see here, branding means that a firm gives a distinctive name to its product. This word distinctive simply means a special name that can be identified to that particular firm or company. So, we have it that it is a general term covering brand names, like the company names. We have designs and symbols which may be used by a producer to distinguish his product from other organizations. And this very aspect is to prevent product adulteration. Let's talk a bit about this. So, like I said initially, the main reason of branding is to what? It is used by producer to distinguish his product from other organizations to prevent product adulteration. For example, if you go to the market, you can see, okay, let's talk about cement. You all know we have that cement, and we have other cement products. Now, for you to be able to distinguish that product from other products, that has to come up with his own brand and name, so that fake product, people cannot come up with fake products like that might look like his own product in the market. That's what this branding simply means. Also, let's let's say Coca-Cola or 7-Up, for example, they have their in the market that people will see and might think is their product. So that is one of the modern trends of retailing in our days. So now we'll go ahead to look at the next trend, modern trend, which is self-service. What is this self-service? Self-services. Having looked at branding, we'll go ahead now to look at self-services. So what is self-service? Going by what we have here, we can see that self-service allows the customer to go around and select the product he or she wants without assistance, right? For example, we all know about ShopRite. I believe we all know about ShopRite. You can just walk into the ShopRite and without assistance, you can go around with the help of trolleys, go around, pick the goods you want to pick, and all that you need before leaving without any assistance. So that is what self-service is talking about. We can see it here that it allows the customer to go around and select the product he wants without assistance. Like we all know, such goods are displayed with price tags for customers to move around and select their choice with the use of baskets. You can find it in departmental stores and so on and so forth. Now, talking about the third trend of retailing, which is known as vending machine. Vending machine. Now, I want to believe that this very aspect of modern trades of retailing is not popular here in our country. We have vending machine. And we have it that this is a retail outlet that automatically dispenses prepacked, it's supposed to be prepacked products, such as drinks stored in it, whenever the appropriate value coin is inserted. Okay? It is usually found in places like offices, schools, and sports arena. This very aspect of modern trade of retailing is not popular here in our country. But when you go to places overseas, you can find it. There's another aspect of vending machine that is also called the juice box. Yes, that also is not very common here in Nigeria. Although that has to do, you can find that in places like hotels, you can find that in places like music halls, and so on and so forth. And how does this function? This juice box, you just go ahead with your coin or whatever you have, insert it into the juice box, and it begins to play a particular music. So this now replaces the work of the DJ or whatever, as you can see there. So that is the third modern trend of retailing, which is known as vending. So now we go ahead, we look at the next modern trends of retailing. Or before then, we will talk about wholesale trade, which is the same thing as wholesaling. Wholesaling, right? Right from the beginning of this class, we have been talking about wholesaling, we have been talking about retailing. We have talked a bit about retailing, and now we'll go ahead and talk about wholesale. What is wholesale really about? So we have it here that this is business activity, which are merchants for business people. Another word for merchant is business people. So what does this talk about now? The activity which entails buying of goods in bulk, that is in large quantities, from the producer, and selling in small quantities to the retailers and other merchants. Okay? Taking Dangote as another example, we all know that Dangote is a producer of goods, of course, in large quantity. Now, when someone goes to Dangote factory to purchase some of his goods. Okay, let's say you went to the market, Dangote factory, to purchase these noodles, Indomie Dangote noodles, right? You buy such goods in large quantity and you sell it in small quantities to the retailers. It simply means you are a wholesaler or you are into wholesaling. You can use another word as wholesaling. So we have it here that a wholesaler is a merchant, another of a merchant, like I said, a business person who purchases goods in large quantities. Let's take it of these large quantities from the manufacturer and sells in small quantities to the retailers, right? So that is it, by the way. So now we'll go ahead to look at the next part, which is the having talked about home trade. We also know that foreign goods and services to the final consumer. So having talked about home trade has to do with the immediate environment. Foreign trade, otherwise called international trade, is the exchange of goods and services between two or more countries. Take note of that. It can be two countries, it can be one country supplying goods to, let's say, 5 different countries. Now, the theory of international trade, as compounded by David Richards, states that a country should specialize in the production of goods and services which it has advantage over other countries to enable production of goods at a cheaper cost. We have an example here. For example, Nigeria purchases goods like what? We have automobiles and electronics from overseas countries. Like we all know, we are not good at the production of such products. So Nigeria purchases such goods as electronics and automobiles from overseas countries and sells our local products. You all know some of our local products like cocoa, palm oil, and rubber to other countries. As we all know that some of these local products, you can't find it, or it's very rare to find in some of these overseas countries. So how do we do this foreign trade? We do exchange of goods, like when we provide this cocoa, palm oil, and rubber to them, we import goods like electronics and automobiles. So, okay, right now let's go ahead and see the next aspect of trade. So, we have it that foreign or international trade can be divided into two, right? Like I said from the beginning, we have the imports, we have the exports, and there's another aspect of foreign trade that is not popular, which is known as ENTREPORT. I'm sure so many people have not heard about this, ENTREPORT. So I will mention the various aspects of foreign or international trade. We'll go ahead and describe them one after the other, starting with import trade. What is import trade? We have it that this is the act of buying goods and services from other countries, such as transport, banking, insurance, and consultancy services. And this very aspect of import trade is divided into two, which is known as visible and invisible trade. Right? Visible and invisible trade. So, having talked a bit about export trade, now we're talking about import trade, which we have defined as the act of buying goods and services from other countries, such as transport, banking, insurance, and consultancy services. In this case now, instead of bringing goods from overseas country or neighboring countries, we are moving our product, rather, they are moving their product to our country. And we have it that it is divided into visible and invisible trade or import. So we'll go ahead and look at this what's the difference between this visible and invisible trade in the next slide. So we have it that here, visible trade. What is visible trade? Visible trade consists of goods that can be seen and touched. Of course, we all know of goods that you can see and touch, right? We have example like automobiles. You can see automobiles, you can touch them, you can feel them. We have electronics. Of course, we know about electronics. And we have machinery like tractors and so on and so forth. Talk about electronics like sound systems, televisions, and the likes. So now, having talked about visible trade, let's look at what invisible import is, right? We have it that invisible import consists of things we cannot see. Of course, there are things we cannot see and touch, such as banking. You can't see the aspect of banking. You can't see the aspect of tourism, and you can't see the aspect of aviation, right? And we have it that this will usually appear in the balance of payment. That is, this is usually in written form. That's what it means. In the balance of payment. That is, it's not something you can see, it's not something you can feel, it's not something you can touch, but it's being reflected in the balance of payment, which is usually written at the end of the year. So let's move ahead to the next aspect, which is export trade. From the beginning, we mentioned import trade, we mentioned export trade, and we mentioned ENTREPORT. So now we are looking at what is this export trade, right? Now, we have that export trade is the act of selling goods and services to other countries, which is opposite of what the import trade is about, which involves the transportation of or movement of this, okay, let's say goods from Nigeria to other countries or neighboring countries. This export trade is also divided into the visible and invisible trade. Like we said, the visible export consists of goods sold in overseas markets. For example, we all know that visible goods are things that we can see, things that we can touch. So, example of such product, we have cocoa, we have palm oil, we have crude oil, we have textile. We have so many products that we can see and we can touch and can be exported to foreign countries or neighboring countries. So let's look at the invisible trade exports, which is the same thing as what we talk about in import trade. It includes transport, banking, insurance, consultancy services, and the likes. Right? We have transport, banking, insurance at the end of the year, or whatever way the country choose to present such information. So, having mentioned and having talked about import and export trade, we are going to look at the last aspects of foreign trade. We have here that is a form of foreign trade in which goods are shipped to one port, that is probably shipped to one port in another country, right? And subsequently, those goods are re-exported and shipped to another port. Let's say, for example, electronics are being shipped from Japan to Lagos, a port in Lagos, and after that, it is being stored there for a particular period of time, and from there, for example, let's say Turkey exports goods to, let's say, such goods or services stays in that port for a number of days or weeks, and from there, such goods or products of ENTREPORT. That is, there's always a stop somewhere, right? There's always such goods produced or such services produced, are actually on a transit point before they are being exported to other countries, right? So now we're going to move to the next aspect. What does this talk about? Okay, having talked about all this, as we all know, we have been doing all of this in preparation to that that have been given as of 2010 in relation to all that we have done today. So as you can see here, we have the UTME exam for 2010. We have the commerce question, and this is actually paper type B, as you can see here, paper type B. So we have the first question there. The first question there is that, which commerce question paper is given to you? As you all know, to answer this question, you simply look at the top left-hand corner of your book or your question paper. It is written type B, paper type B, right? So which means this is very easy. Now we have the second question. And what does the question say? The wealth of a nation depends on the volume of its what? The first option there we have bilateral trade activity, what is known as multilateral trade activities, and the deeper, which is stock market. Right? Having going back to what we are talking about today, we can see that the wealth of a nation actually depends on the volume of its commercial activities. Why? Because we define commerce, which is derived from the word commercial, as all activities that deals with the production of goods and services and how these goods and services has been transported or moved to the final consumer to improve the aspect of trade of its commercial activities, which means our answer here is commercial activities. Which means our answer here is commercial activities, right? Okay. So now let's move ahead to this third question. We have it that which of the following can be used to differentiate skilled and unskilled labor? There are so much talk about skilled and unskilled labor today, and we described what is known as the skilled labor, and we also talked about what is the unskilled labor, right? We talked about the skilled labor, and we also talked about unskilled labor, right? So now, the question here goes that, the question we have here is that, which of the following can be used to differentiate skilled and unskilled labor? Having talked about skilled labor as an aspect of labor that requires education and training based on our teaching for today, right? The answer is going to be what? A. What differentiates skilled and unskilled labor, right? We all know that unskilled labor does not require any of these two, education and training. You don't need any of these two to actually do an unskilled labor, right? So let's now look at the fourth question, right? Let's look at the fourth question. Let's not put this into consideration. So we have number 4. A doctor who attends to patients at home after his official duty is, we have A community development worker, B, a direct service worker, C, and because of our class today, we talked about direct and indirect service worker. And what did we talk about direct service worker? or a direct worker. We say a direct worker is one pushed into extraction of raw materials, right? Extraction of raw materials. And as we all know, a doctor is not into extraction of raw materials, right? We all know that the doctor is not into working with raw materials. So, and we also describe an indirect service as one who make use of finished goods, like as we all know, or finished product. So, the question there goes that a doctor who attends to a patient at home after his official duty, right? After his official duty, we all know that he's what? Going by what you have talked about today, the answer will be A, which is a direct service worker, right? So we'll now go ahead and look at the next question. The next question. The question goes: manufacturing and constructive activities are classified under. We have option A, which is primary production. We have option B as tertiary production. We have option C as secondary production. And we have option D as direct services. Right? Okay. We all know that we have primary production. We talk about primary, we talk about secondary, and we talk about tertiary, right? So we talked about primary production as those who are directly into or are involved into extraction of raw materials, right? And we also talked about secondary production as those who make use of these raw materials that have been extracted and process some of these materials into finished good. Right? Now, we all know that direct service does not have anything to do with this manufacturing. With regards to what we have taught today, you can see that the answer is what? Secondary production. Why is it called secondary production? Because after these raw materials are being gotten, it is this manufacturing and constructive industries that processes such raw materials into finished goods. Taking for example, cement, right? Talking about cement, it is the builder or the person who used to construction of houses that actually uses this very product to build houses. So that is why we can say the answer here is secondary production. I haven't talked about secondary production as those who are involved into using some of these materials into finished product. So now we'll go ahead and look at the next question, and the question goes that this: the rewards of rents, wages, interest, and profit accrue from what? Where does it come from? Why do we do all of this? Rents, wages, interest, and profit. Right? First one, then we have capital, that is accordingly or respectively. First one, then we have: is it that the reward for rent is capital? Is it that the reward for wages is labor? Is it that the reward for interest is land? And the reward for profit is entrepreneur? You look at it respectively before you go ahead and make your answer or give your answer. We have labor and we have capital. So looking at this very option, can we say that the reward for rent is land? Or can we say that the reward for wages is entrepreneur? Or can we say the reward for interest is labor and the reward for profit is capital? So it's very good you know all of this in relation to these very four factors here: rent, wages, interest, and profit. Land, We have land, we have entrepreneur, we have we have land, we have labor, we put that into consideration. Is the reward for labor wages? You also put that into consideration. Is the reward for capital interest? And is the reward for entrepreneur profit? So based on what we have talked about today, we mentioned that the reward for entrepreneur, we mentioned that it's profits, right? Which means this is actually irrespective order, that the profit for entrepreneur is, the profit for what? Entrepreneur, or the reason why we are into entrepreneurship is to make profits, right? So as you can see, this one is in agreement with respective order, that the reward for entrepreneur is profit, and the reward for capital is what? Wages. And the reward for labor that we talked about also is interest, as we talked about today. And for land is what? Rent. So when by this very option you have here, of course we can't say this is the answer, because D, option D, we have labor, we have entrepreneur, we have land, we have capital, respectively, and this cannot be in order based on what we have here, because we can't say that the reward for rent is labor. Of course, it's not possible. Or we can't say the reward for labor is rent. We can't say the reward for entrepreneur is wages. No, we didn't mention that today. You can't say the reward for land is interest. No. And you can't say the reward for capital is profits. So, going by what we have here, it means the best option for our question there is option C. Why is it option C? Because going by what you have done today, we mentioned earlier that the reward for land, entrepreneur is profit. So, going by that, you can see that the perfect answer for this question is option C, which is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur respectively. So that is the right way. So, which is question 7. Talking about the factor of production, we talked about the factors of production, which is land, capital, labor, and entrepreneur. Okay. Now this question is relating to the factors of production. Let's see how we can use what we have learned today to see what or know what the right answer is. So question 7. Question 7 says the factor of production that is subject to depreciation. Depreciation. Let's take note. Let's take note of depreciation. Simply is. You know, we're talking about factor of production now, right? The word depreciation there can say something that decreases in value, right? Depreciation, something that decreases in value. So, based on these factors of production we have talked about, let's see which of these options A, B, C, and D can actually depreciate in value or is subject to depreciation. So the question then is the factor of production that is subject to depreciation is, we have option A, we have capital, option B, we have land, option C, we have an open inlet, and option D, we have a freight note. Of course, looking at this very option, we have only 2 factors of production. We have land and we have capital, right? So, looking at this now, which of these factors can we see can depreciate in value? So, we all know that land is fixed in nature. Land is fixed, but capital, as we all know, is not fixed in nature. So, it can depreciate at any time. Yes. So, putting that into consideration, going by this question, the factor of production that is subject to depreciation, definitely the answer should be capital, which is option A as the correct answer. Just like I said, something that can depreciate in value is what this depreciation is, or something that can reduce in value is what we're talking about depreciation here. So, having answered this question 7 as A, we'll now move to the next question, which is question 8. Question 8. We all know that we also talked about division of labor, right? We talked about division of labor as a major factor in commercial activities, right? Now, we have question 8, and the question says that division of labor ultimately leads to what? Right? I'm sure we talked about this directly. So this ultimately leads to what? That's what the question is asking. So number A, can we say that division of labor leads to integration? And we have option C, which is specialization, and option D, which is repetition. Now, having looked at this very option and related to what we have done today, we talked about specialization as it was actually mentioned that division of labor actually leads to specialization based on what we have taught today. So, which means the answer there is very clear because it was direct and it was straight to the point. So it means division of labor ultimately leads to specialization. You can remember in today's lesson when we talked about like a printing, a press company, right, or a printing company. We have we can divide individual outputs into different aspects. Like you can say one is for manuscripts. You can say another group of individual is for what? Editing of this manuscript, or you can say this is writing of the manuscript, writing of this manuscript, right? Writing manuscripts. One person can be into writing of manuscripts, another can be into editing. So as you can see, this very aspect of what division of labor has led to specialization of this very work, right? And if an individual should handle this very aspect, let's say printing, and another individual handles editing, you all know that this will make the work very easier and to make it very faster, which means a work that will take, let's say, an hour, if it is being specialized to individual or for individual people, you can finish it within 30 seconds and 30 minutes rather. So that is why division of labor actually leads to the right option, which is option C, specialization. So that is it. So it means, going by what you have taught today, I believe we talked about all this. So the answer there should be specialization, which is option C. So I think that is it. So now we look at the next question, which is question 9. What is question 9? It's not to get confused. Let's erase this and read the question. Question 9, we have it that a worker who processes rice, let's listen to this very carefully. A worker who processes rice is engaged in what? Right? Is engaged in what? We have option A, constructive activity. Option B, we have commercial activity. And option manufacturer activity. Right? Let's look at question. A worker who process, let's take note of the word process. Constructive activity. Is there any way a person who processes rice construct anything, or does it have anything to do with constructive activity? Of course, the answer is no, right? So the option cannot be option A, like we all know, right? Okay, let's look at the next option. Option B, which is commercial activity, right? Commercial activity does not do it. It doesn't also do it processing, right? Commercial activity doesn't do it processing, but probably, or let's say how the such products or goods and services are being produced and how it gets to the final consumer. That is what commercial activity simply all about. So next we have extractive activity, right? Extractive activity. Of course, the extractive aspect of commerce has to do with the extraction of raw materials, right? So, which means we can say that the person who processes rice, right, is the same person who harvests rice, right? So the harvesting part, right, is what is known as the extractive activity. So we can say that this processing, which is the second aspect, is part of extractive activity, right? So it means I will take note of the word process. The answer cannot be option C. The answer cannot be option C. So moving to the next option, which is option D, manufacturer, we also call it manufacturing, the same thing depending on the word used. So which is manufacturing activity. Of course, we all know that this very worker that processes rice is into manufacturing this rice to finished product. That's the main point there. It's manufacturing this rice and processing it to finished product, right? So going by our question there, we can say that the answer there cannot be A, which is constructive activity. It cannot be B, which is commercial activity. It cannot be C, which is extractive activity. It cannot be D, which is the answer should be, pardon me for that please. The answer should be D, which is manufacturer activity. As you all know, since it has to do with processing of rice, right, to finish products. So the answer is manufacturer activity. So we will now go ahead and look at the next question for 2010, question 10, which is talking about after sales services. After sales services, right? We talked about, if I can remember, we talked about modern trends of retail. Yes, we mentioned modern trends of retail today. So now we have going by the question. The question says, after sales services is a function usually rendered by. We have option A. Is it the retailer? We have option B. Is it the wholesaler? We have option C. Is it an agent? And option D, which is the last answer, an entrepreneur. Right? I will talk about, based on our lecture today, we talked about modern trends of retail, right? Modern trends of retail. And as part of the modern trends of retailing, we mentioned we have option A, a retailer, option B, a wholesaler, option C, an agent, and option D, an entrepreneur. And we also talked about wholesaler from the beginning of our class today as a person who buys products in bits, right, or units, in bits or units, that is not in large quantities, from the wholesaler, right? And he sells these goods to the consumers, right? And as we all know, a retailer can, let's say, after he has closed his, right, he can still give room to consumers to come and purchase goods at any time, right? At any time. So we have option A, which is a retailer. Option B, wholesaler. Option C, an agent. And option D, an entrepreneur. So, based on what we did today in our class, we talked about after sales services as a major, which is a retailer. So now let's look at the next question, which has to do with trend, which we just talked about. Trend in retailing, which, okay, the question says, a trend in retailing which enables consumer to have free access to different products is, number one, we have the after sales services. The after sales service. Option B, we have branding. Option C, we have sales services. Option D, we have the vending machine. I'm sure we talked about all of this today, right? We talked about all of this today, right? So let's look at what all of this is, right? We have after sales services, which we just talked about, that a retailer can actually open his own business. And we talked about branding. If you can remember, we talked about branding as one of the major modern trends of retailing. And what do we talk about branding? Branding is actually like naming or packaging of your products, but to avoid counterfeit products, so that nobody can go and make fake products. So if you have a brand name and let's say a particular packaging, you can, it should be very difficult for somebody to go out there and just manipulate a product as your own product. So that is one of the aspects of branding I should talk about as a modern trend of retailing. So let's now look at the next option related to our question. The question is a trend in retailing which enables consumers to have free access to different products. Option C is self-services, right? Self-services. And I believe we all have when I talked about self-service as one of the major or modern trend of retailing in these days. Like, for example, I mentioned when you go to ShopRite, you don't need any body to come and direct you on what to do. You just walk around, look at what you want. Of course, they usually put what is known as price tags. Price tags. So you don't need to go and ask, how much is this thing? How much is that thing? So that is where self-service is coming. And also talked about it has to, it also involves the use of trolleys, right? Trolleys and bags. Yes, I mentioned that. The use of trolleys, instead of calling anybody to assist you, you can just go to the supermarket, get a trolley and pick your products, put it inside the trolley and move. So that is where self-service is coming. And if you can remember, as a point of reminder, I also talked about vending machine, which I said is not popular in this our Indian society, but you can find it in some rare places here, like maybe in hotels. You can find it in sports arena. And what is this vending machine? This vending machine is more like a machine that has been programmed. This machine is programmed when you put a particular amount, right? It dispenses a product. For example, let's say you want to buy one of these wine. Okay, which one guys, for example? Let's say you want to buy, let's say you want to buy a cocktail or whatever. You can simply want to buy it. So instead of going to meet somebody and say, I want to buy this, you simply go and insert that very amount into this vending machine and it dispenses whatever product you want to get. So now related to with all of this to our question. The question is, a trend in retailing which enables customers to have free access. Let's take it. Free access to different. So let's take note of these two parts, or these two words. So the first one is free access, and the second one is different. Free access and different products, right? We talked about all this as modern trends in retailing. And if you want to relate this to any of this, you can't say branding have free access to different products. No. Because, like I said, branding is for packaging and differentiation of your goods from other products or other people's products. So we have self-services that I just explained. As you can see, with self-service, you can have free access to different products. So which is very obvious that the answer there is what? Self-services. Self-services. Because with self-service, you don't need the help of anybody. You can just go ahead and enter, let's say, supermarket or a bakery, option C, which is self-service. Good. So let's now look at the next question, which is question 12, 2010. And okay, we are not to get confused. Let's erase this area. So, question 12. The question goes that, or the question says that what? The activity which entails buying of goods in bulk. Let's make this a key in small quantities to retailers, right? The question there is in bulk. The question there is buying in bulk and selling in small quantities to retailers. So from the beginning of this class, we mentioned or we talked about who a wholesaler is. We also talked about who a retailer is, right? So let us go ahead and relate these very answers to our question and see which one we agree with our question. So the question to retailers is what? Option A, is it assembling? We have option B, or merchandising. So if you go ahead and relate this to our question, you can see we define a wholesaler as someone who buys goods in bulk from the producer or manufacturer and sells in small quantities, that is in bits, it's in small quantities to retailers. So going by this now, you can see that the question is definitely, the answer is definitely not assembling, it's not retailing, since retailing has to do with in bits and units, selling of goods in bits and units to other consumers, and of course not merchandising, which has to do with selling of goods. So the answer there, the right option there is option B. So now we look at the next question, which is question 13. And what is the question? We have it as the comparison of a country's visible and invisible export and import. Is expressed in monetary term, or okay, you can still give it that way. The comparison of a country's visible and invisible export and import expressed in monetary term is, number one, we have balance of payments, right? We have balance of payment. Option A is balance of payment. Option B is terms of trade. Option C is balance of trade. And option D is terms of payment, right? So, I believe in the course of our class today, we talked about balance of payment as an aspect of exports that deals with what? Only invisible product, right? Only invisible product like banking, insurance, and the likes. banking, insurance, because some of these we cannot feel them and cannot touch them. So that is why it is called invisible. Uh, that's why it is called invisible export, right? And we know that invisible export is usually expressed at the end of the year using what is known as balance of payment. That is, it is written down as balance of payment probably at the end of the year or depending on how you want to present it. And we also talked about terms of trade, of course, which is not related to visible and invisible exports. Then we have option C there. Option C, which is balance of trade, and option D, which is terms of payment, right? So we all know that for both um, import and export, the invisible aspect of import and export, it is represented in the form of balance of payment, like we have mentioned today. It is expressed in the form of balance of payment. So, but in this aspect now, we're talking about a country's both visible and invisible. So, the answer there cannot be balance of payment, but rather the answer is what? Balance of trade. Balance of trade, which is option C. Balance of trade. Since it has to do with both the visible and the invisible export and import. Let's take note of that. Right? So that is it, by the way. Let's look at the next question. The next question is question 14. So the question says that the document that gives an importer a free hand to obtain goods from any manufacturer, right? A free hand, that is like a license, right? A license to uh, obtain goods from any manufacturer is what? That is the question. So let's look at the options there. We didn't mention consular invoice as the document that gives an importer a free hand to obtain. We didn't mention anything like consular invoice, rather. So we have option B, closed indent. Can we say it's a closed indent? Of course. Can we say it's a closed indent? Of course, it's not a closed indent, right? So let us look at option C, which is open indent, right? We mentioned that the document, in the course of our teaching today, in this very class, we mentioned that the document that is the document that gives an importer a free hand to obtain goods from any manufacturer is option C, which is open. Of course, not closed, but the open indent. So that is it. Now look at the last question, which is question 15, talking about ENTREPORT. Now, I want to believe that not so many of us have heard about these very trades. Remember, from the beginning of this class, we talked about imports, we talked about exports, and in this aspect, we are talking of ENTREPORT. So, and if you can remember, I talked about ENTREPORT as more like when goods are bought and being transported to another country, let's say a port in the country, and such goods after some time is being re-exported back to another country. I believe I mentioned that to you. Like, for example, if you import goods from, let's say, China to Turkey, right? To Turkish port, a port in Turkey. As a transit point, you store such goods and services for a period of time, and then maybe export such goods to another country, let's say to Germany. That's an example of ENTREPORT, which means in ENTREPORT there is actually what is known as a transit, where these very goods that are being transported to a country are being exported to another country. So let us look at this very question and the answer that actually suits the question. So we have option A. So we're trying to know what entreport is now. We have option A, exchanging goods within a nation. Did we mention anything like that? I believe no. Right? We didn't mention anything. The only aspect that deal with exchanging of goods within a nation, as mentioned today, is known as home trade. Yes, we talked about home trade. So, which means entreport and home trade are not the same, right? So it means the right option cannot be option A, which is exchanging goods within a nation. Option B is what? Exchanging goods among countries, right? Exchanging goods among countries. Can we say that entreport actually is exchanging goods among countries? No. Why? Because, for example, we transport, let's say, cocoa or rubber from Nigeria to Cameroon. That has not actually fulfilled or satisfied what is known as entreport. Why? Because such goods has gotten to its destination without a transit, right? So we can't say that option B is the answer, because what we have here is what? Exchanging goods among countries, of course, which is not a term to describe export. So let us look at option C. What is option C? We have option C as what? Importing goods to be re-exported, right? Importing goods to be re-exported. The definition of or example of entreport I gave. You can't say that entreport is what? Importing goods to be re-exported. No, that does not meet what we talked about entreport, right? So we can't say the answer is C, right? Okay, let's look at option B rather. We can't say the answer is B because it's not exchange of goods among countries. Now option C, what does it say? Option C is what? Importing goods to be re-exported. Let's take note of this. To be re-exported, which means what you do, you first of all import. So, which means going by the definition or example of entreport, we say that our correct option here is so which satisfies our definition of entreport or um, example of entreport. And of course, it's not the exporting of goods to be reported. If you export a particular goods and import it back, of course, you can't say that is entreport. So, having been able to cover what we've done today in regards to this very question, I will now go ahead and give you some assignments. Yes. Which I will put on the board any moment from now. So the assignment goes thus. We have so question one. What's question one? Question one. In your own time, define commerce. define commas and give 5 examples and explain. Okay, give 5 examples of commercial activities. Commercial activities and explain each. Next question 1, right? So let's look at question 2. Question 2. Question 2. Question 2 goes like this. So, okay, let me just add a little bit to this very question. In your own terms, define commas and give 5 examples of commercial activities. I think there's a spelling mistake here. It should be examples, not example. Please take note of that. So, question, in your own terms, that is your own understanding, right? You are asked to define commas and give 5 examples. And give 5 examples of commercial activities. And you go ahead and explain each of these 5 examples. That is what this question is talking about. So, question 2. Question 2. You will list and explain. Remember, during the course of our class, we talked about the factors of production. So we are going to list and explain these very factors of production. List and explain from given 2, 3. That's question 3. Question 3. I believe in this very lecture we talked about labor. We also talked about the 2 different aspects of labor. So this question 3 has to do with the types of labor. So you are going to give me, okay, list and explain in detail. We have types of labor. List and explain 2 types of labor and give various examples in each case. Give various examples in each case. Right? That's question 3. So let's look at question number 4. Question number 4. Right? I believe we also talked about production. So in your own term, you are going to explain production and give the major categories of production. This is question 4. Question 4. Question 4. Or you already put it down, your own understanding. Describe production and the 2 categories. Two categories Don't forget, after describing production, we still go ahead and what? Explain the two categories of protection also in detail. In details, giving examples in each case. In each case. Number 5, question number 5. Question number 5. And it goes like this. Question number 5. So you define division of labor. Define division of labor. Division of labor. Okay. Define division of labor and differentiate. Differentiate between foreign trade define division of labor and differentiate between home trade, foreign trade, and the last aspect of trade, which is entreport. Right? So the last question for the day, which is question number 6. 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 Question number 6 is differentiate. Okay. First of all, define and differentiate between a producer, another of a producer, we all know is manufacturer, producer, wholesaler, define and differentiate between a producer and a retailer. Give example of each. Give example of each in detail. So we'll make this our take-home assignment. We're expected to see your reply online. Like as you all know, everything here is based online. So and many more next class. So it's nice time to be here to put you through commerce. Do have a wonderful day and take care of yourselves. Thank you.